Zhang Yue's eyes have mutated. You can see detailed information about any physical product, as well as the price change curve for the next month. For example, Octagon, current price 9.5 yuan per gene, 87.5 yuan per gene in 5 days. Actually, it is a planar coordinate map. Due to difficulty in displaying, the introduction has been replaced with a textual description. Other products include grains, medicinal herbs, aquatic products, alcoholic beverages, cars, houses, lithography machines, manned rockets. So his originally poor life suddenly became filled with gold everywhere. Counting a large amount of money with his fingers, Zhang Yue chuckled. With this artifact, you can even take the exam for the establishment of a ghost's public institution. Wait, public institutions need to have staffing, and money cannot be reduced. P.S. Parallel world, some common sense rules are different from the real world, please do not forcefully substitute them, thank you. Keywords of the novel. I can see the product price curve without pop-ups. I can see the product price curve. Download the complete set of TXT, and I can read the latest chapters on the product price curve. Chapter 1. What is the end of the universe? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. What is the end of the universe? If someone asks Zhang Yue, what is the end of the universe? Zhang Yue would definitely answer without hesitation, the end of the universe is the entrance exam. For example, at this moment, he is standing in front of the comprehensive building of Zhongzhou University, looking at the text message on his phone. The SMS was a notice sent by the Zhongzhou Grain Inspection Association a week ago. The other party asked him to attend the annual interview and recruitment at the Zhongzhou Grain Review Conference at 10:50 a.m. this morning in room 304, the third floor of the comprehensive building of Zhongzhou University. When Zhang Yue received this news, his face was filled with excitement. After 7 years, 2,555 days of review until 1 a.m., and 6 failed written exams, he finally waited for the current opportunity. There is only one reason why I am working so hard. Zhongzhou Grain Appraisal Association is a public institution in Zhongzhou City. The Zhongzhou Grain Supervision Commission is affiliated with the Zhongzhou Grain Bureau, and its core business is to provide commercial and technical support for the cultivation, development, and trade of grain in Zhongzhou. It has 6 offices in Zhongzhou City and has a recruitment quota of 14 people this year. However, the total number of applicants here this year was 15637, with an admission rate of 1/1117, which falls under the standard of 1,000 soldiers crossing a single wooden bridge. Thinking of this, Zhang Yue suddenly felt a little nervous. Even if I pass the written test this year, what if I get so caught up in this situation? Is there really hope for success? Zhang Yue, who has already experienced 6 failures, has long lost the motivation to daydream. Just as he was thinking, the morning sunlight shone through the windows of the complex building and reflected onto his face. Zhang Yue instinctively closed his eyes. When he opened it again, he was momentarily dumbfounded. Because Zhang Yue suddenly realized that his world seemed to have changed in a different way. To be precise, Zhang Yue now would see an extra string of red characters in front of him when he looked at anything. For example, the comprehensive building in front of us. This building was first built in 1992 and was initially funded by a famous alumnus, Mr. Yang Wendong, with a total cost of 2.27 million yuan. It was used as the library of Zhongzhou University from 1996 to 2004, and was converted into an experimental building from 2005 to 2012. It is now the iconic core building of the school. Is this a superpower? Zhang Yue is not unfamiliar with so-called abilities. Just Zhang Yue pondered for a while longer, and his face became even more puzzled. He found that his abilities seemed a bit useless. It is very similar to Qiandu Encyclopedia, which automatically provides the detailed introduction to what is seen. But this kind of introduction, I'll ask Dunyang and you'll know. Why bother with it? Shaking his head, Zhang Yue looked at the red letter again, unwilling to accept it. This time, he finally realized a little difference. At the end of the red letter, there is an inconspicuous coordinate curve chart. The above shows the price curve of Zhongzhou University Comprehensive Building for the next month. Looking at this curve, Zhang Yue couldn't help but shudder. Because it shows that the total price of this complex building is 52.9 million. Oh no! Established at 2.27 million yuan, it took 31 years and was almost scrapped. Can it still be increased by 23.3 times? It is indeed the legendary crazy real estate. Oh no! Suddenly, Zhang Yue remembered his purpose of coming here. Unable to continue his research, he rushed to the staircase and climbed up in just 2 or 3 steps. In front of the 304 door. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Yue knocked on the door. A pleasant female voice came from inside. Please come in. Zhang Yue pushed the door and entered. At this moment, a little sister is sitting in the conference room, with a graceful and charming demeanor, like a lotus in water. Hello, my name is Zhang Yue and I have received a notification to come for an interview. Zhang Yue quickly introduced his purpose and expressed admiration in his heart. Undoubtedly, it is a legendary public institution that looks so good when connected to others. If you can work here in the future, don't be too happy. He was thinking about it when he saw a strange look in He Li's eyes. Are you here for the interview? But the interview has already ended. Zhang Yue was surprised and said, What? The interview has ended. Yes, there are a total of 45 people notified for the interview this time, and 36 people came yesterday. The remaining 9 people have all left before 10:30. He Li shook the interviewer's transcript in her hand, indicating that she was not lying. A cool breath spread from head to toe, and Zhang Yu's expression was full of frustration. So, is that how it ended? If one's own performance is not good enough, resulting in not being admitted in the end, it is considered that one's skills are inferior to others. But now I'm not even given a chance to speak. Suddenly, Zhang Yue thought of something and quickly took out his phone, saying, Madam, the notification I received was indeed for an interview at 10:50. It's only 10:47 now. If you don't believe me, look. He Li stared at Zhang Yu's short message on his phone and frowned slightly. What's going on? After thinking for a moment, she opened the computer to check for a moment, and finally said, Mr. Zhang, I'm sorry, but please wait here for a moment. I'll go ask the leader. After speaking, he hurriedly left. Next door, room 306. Lu Xiaoguang, the president of the Zhongzhou Grain Inspection Association, looked at the old man in front of him and smiled, saying, Professor Zhou, come, drink tea, and taste the biluacun that I have cherished for many years. Zhou Shueding said helplessly, when it comes to Lao Lu, who doesn't know who we've been friends for so many years. Treasured for many years. I think it's just a few tens of yuan per kilogram, street vendor. Did you guess all of this? Next time, I'll try to buy one that weighs over 100 pounds. The two of them made a few jokes, and Lu Xiaoguang asked, You came specifically from the capital this time. What's up? Speaking of this, Zhou Shueding sighed helplessly and said, What else can we know about the current market trend of star anise? What? Octagonal. When it comes to star anise, Lu Xiaoguang can't help but feel a tingling sensation on his scalp. Octagon is a common seasoning, and as long as you are slightly interested in cooking, it is not unfamiliar. However, it was this small seasoning that caused Lu Xiaoguang to stir up a lot. Although the Zhongzhou Grain Inspection Association only has one word for grain, its jurisdiction is not limited to common grains and miscellaneous grains. As long as it is a crop, it is under the management of the Zhongzhou Grain Inspection Commission. Last year, due to the small scale of star anise cultivation, its price was double that of previous years. Seeing those people who grow star anise make money, other farmers follow the trend of planting. As a result, this year's star anise production has increased by more than 10 times compared to previous years. So before we could harvest anything, the price had already dropped to freezing point in advance. All the farmers who grow star anise are destined to lose all their money before they start harvesting. The most serious problem among them is in Hunan province. The purpose of the establishment of the Zhongzhou Grain Appraisal Association is to stabilize crop prices and protect the interests of farmers. Now even the most powerful expert in the field of grain, Zhou Shueding, has arrived, indicating that this matter has become very sensational. If not handled properly, one's position as the president of the Zhongzhou Grain Inspection Association may not be guaranteed. Just then, a knock on the door rang out. "Come in. It's He Li." Lu Xiaoguang frowned and said, "What's up?" He Li said, "President Lu, there is a person named Zhang Yue coming for an interview." "Interview? Did you mention this year's new recruitment? Isn't it already over?" Heli helplessly spread out her hand and said, "I don't know what's going on either. We have sent out a total of 45 interview invitations this time, and the score for the 45th place in the competition is 157 points. This Zhang Yue just passed 124, barely passing. But I checked the official website of the Zhongzhou Grain Bureau and it did indeed send an interview notice." Lu Xiaoguang couldn't help but frown and said, "What's going on? Does the other party have a connection with the Grain Bureau?" He Li shook her head and said, "No, if it were really like this, someone would definitely say hello in advance. And I checked the sending time of the interview notice, it was 2 a.m. on the 13th. At that time, the system of the Grain Bureau was under maintenance. Are you saying there is a system bug?" "This is the only possibility." Lu Xiaoguang impatiently waved his hand and said, "All right, you can just give him 2 difficult questions about this matter and dismiss him." However, He Li remained in a dilemma. "Because I didn't know anyone else was coming, Director Qian and Angkor, who were in charge of the interview, have already returned to their unit. I can't do it alone. In order to ensure fairness and justice, the Zhongzhou Grain Inspection Commission stipulates. Interviewers must have at least 3 people present during the interview." Lu Xiaoguang frowned again. Finally, he said, "Since that's the case, I'll act as the interviewer and come with you." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The perverted question you asked me to answer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The perverted question you asked me to answer. After Lu Xiaoguang finished speaking, he suddenly remembered that even if he had himself, he seemed to only be 2 people. Looking around for a week, in the end, he turned his gaze to Zhou Shueding and said, "Professor Zhou, can you do me a little favor?" Zhou Shueding smiled and said, "Do you want me to be your interviewer? Isn't there a regulation here? But you don't need to speak later, just sit next to it." Zhou Shueding nodded and said, "No problem, I happen to want to see how you recruit." Zhang Yue naturally did not know what had happened in the neighboring office. At the moment, he is studying the newly awakened eye power, and has already had some experience. At this moment, the door opened and it was Lu Xiaoguang and the other 3. Lu Xiaoguang first sat down at the main seat, while Zhou Shueding and He Li also sat next to him. After briefly organizing the materials on hand, Lu Xiaoguang said to Zhang Yue, "Let's first introduce ourselves." Zhang Yue instantly regained his energy and stood straight, saying, "Hello examiners, I." His voice is generous and passionate. For the interview, of course, you need to showcase your best mental state. Unexpectedly, Lu Xiaoguang suddenly interrupted him and said, "Stop, what you said is already clearly stated on your resume. There's no need to talk nonsense anymore." Zhang Yu's expression suddenly stiffened. It was not because his words were interrupted, but because Zhang Yue recognized the extreme impatience in Lu Xiaoguang's tone. This left him very puzzled. Have you been very careful since entering the door? And he is very certain that he has no grudge against the middle-aged man in front of him. Lu Xiaoguang didn't care about Zhang Yu's thoughts. He said, "So, I'll just ask you 3 questions. Try your best to answer, I will rate you based on your performance." Zhang Yue suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, it seemed that he had overthought it. Many people choose to ask questions directly during interviews without listening to self-introductions. This is a personal habit of interviewers. He nodded and said, feel free to ask. Lu Xiaoguang turned around and picked up a book, flipping through a few pages casually, saying, "Can you memorize the content of Article 23 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child?" As soon as this sentence was spoken, it was not Zhang Yue who was the first to be stunned, but he leaned next to her. Previously, Lu Xiaoguang asked her to pose a few difficult questions to Zhang Yue, and she already had a specific idea. "I thought I was already smart enough. Compared to Lu Xiaoguang, it is completely inferior to others. No wonder the other party can become a leader, and I have been struggling for so many years and still remain a junior clerk." As for Zhang Yue, his eyes were filled with gorillas. Reciting Article 23 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Is this too absurd? Now he really wants to ask Lu Xiaoguang, what is the relationship between food security and the so-called United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child? Is it true that 17.6% of children in the world still cannot eat enough? Lu Xiaoguang saw that Zhang Yue remained silent for a long time, and his voice instantly calmed down. "Actually, it doesn't matter if you don't memorize everything. You can memorize as much as you think," he said. As soon as these words were spoken, Zhang Yue became even more speechless. "Whenever I can think of a word, I won't say anything until now." Shaking his head, he was about to tell the truth. Suddenly, a corner of his eye caught a glimpse of the book in Lu Xiaoguang's hand, which was the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Then the red letters in his eyes appeared. The Convention on the Rights of the Child is the first legally binding international agreement on the protection of children's rights, adopted by the 44th United Nations General Assembly Resolution 25 on November 20, 1989. The more I look at Zhang Yue, the more I find it unbelievable. Because these red characters record not only the origin of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but also the entire text. Seeing Zhang Yue stunned for another half-day, Lu Xiaoguang shook his head and said, "All right, if you really don't know, then answer the next question." Before he could finish speaking, Zhang Yue spoke up. Article 23 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. 1. The contracting parties recognize that children with physical and mental disabilities should be able to enjoy a fulfilling and appropriate life under conditions that ensure their dignity, promote their independence, and facilitate their active participation in social life. 2. The contracting parties recognize that children with disabilities have the right to receive special care. 3-4. The contracting parties shall, in the spirit of international cooperation, give special consideration to the needs of developing countries. Dear teachers, I have finished memorizing. Now it's Lu Xiaoguang's turn to be stunned. Does this guy really know? Although he only asked a few hundred words about Article 23 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The difficulty of this question has nothing to do with the number of words. Because the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child in his hand was just randomly drawn from the bookshelf. That is to say, let Lu Xiaoguang carry it on his own, he wouldn't even know. Looking at Lu Xiaoguang's surprised gaze, Zhang Yue breathed a long sigh of relief in his heart. What one's own eyes display is exactly the same as what the other person is holding. Seeing that he was still in a daze, Zhang Yue thought for a moment and said, "Teacher, why don't I also memorize the rest for you? The number of words in Article 23 is indeed not many, which is very unfavorable for your grading." No need. Lu Xiaoguang instantly realized that this was not the time to daydream. He nodded and said, "It seems that you usually care more about children. This is great, after all, children represent the future. The second question is, did you see dormitory building 14 when you entered from the entrance of Zhongzhou University?" Zhang Yue nodded. The 14th dormitory building is not far behind the comprehensive building and is easily visible. So tell me, how many windows are there outside dormitory building 14 to dry things? Puff. Zhou Shueding took a sip of tea and sprayed it directly onto the ground, and Lu Xiaoguang's expression became extremely strange. As both from Zhongzhou and with similar job responsibilities, he and Lu Xiaoguang are already very familiar. But it was not until now that Zhou Shueding realized that he knew nothing about this President Lu. Is it the first time for the Zhongzhou Grain Inspection Association to hold a civil servant interview at Zhongzhou University? So when Zhou Shueding came, he specifically observed the surrounding environment. Dormitory Building 14, although very close to the comprehensive building. But due to angle issues, walking straight ahead from the gate until reaching the comprehensive building, the time to see the full view of Dormitory Building 14 will not exceed 5 seconds. If Lu Xiaoguang asked, how many windows are there in Dormitory Building 14? As long as you have a little intention, it can be calculated. But now the other party has turned the question into, how many windows are drying things? Zhou Shueding remembers that when he looked at it, the quilts and clothes on top were densely packed and very irregular. Don't say it's only 5 seconds left. Even if it's 5 minutes, it's impossible to count it clearly without any precautions. Looking up at Zhang Yue's spirited face, he suddenly felt that this young man was so pitiful. Strangely, upon hearing this question, Zhang Yue did not panic like the previous one. He said calmly, "Teacher, if I remember correctly, I passed by Dormitory Building 14 around 10:43. So you asked about the specific time when the things in this dormitory building were sun-dried, before 10:43 or after?" Because at 10:43, students from 2 windows were hanging freshly washed clothes outside. Lu Xiaoguang immediately said, "That's the time you mentioned when the students with 2 windows were putting on clothes outside. Don't worry, just tell me the answer." After speaking, his smile grew stronger at the corner of his mouth. Because in Lu Xiaoguang's view, Zhang Yue's words were completely a joke. Confusing the uncertainty of the number of windows for drying things and trying to pass the test. But if you really think so, you are completely wrong. I dare to ask such a question, there is naturally a standard answer. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Guess. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Guess. Seeing Lu Xiaoguang so certain, Zhang Yue suddenly stood up and said, "Can you give me a piece of paper?" Although Lu Xiaoguang didn't know the purpose of what the other party was doing, he still took out an A4 paper and handed it over. Zhang Yue took it and casually drew a pen, starting to write and draw on it. Quickly, he handed the paper to Lu Xiaoguang. Lu Xiaoguang was taken aback and said, "What is this?" Zhang Yue said, "The student window in Dormitory Building 14 at 10:43 is displaying a distribution map of things." Lu Xiaoguang looked at this blueprint and found it to be a simple stroke. Zhang Yue surprisingly painted the entire dormitory building number 14, including every window above it. Among them, those who are drying clothes and blankets are marked with a square root, while those who are drying are marked with a, which looks clear at a glance. Zhang Yue explained next to him, this dormitory building has a total of 5 floors, with 26 windows on each floor. Among them, there are 67 windows, and clothes are all hung for drying at 10:43. There are 4 on the first floor, 8 on the second floor, 17 on the third floor, 23 on the fourth floor, and 15 on the fifth floor. There are still 2 windows hanging for drying, which are the 4th position from left to right on the 2nd floor and the 3rd position from right to left on the 5th floor. After listening to Zhang Yue finish speaking, Zhou Shueding couldn't help but ask, "Young man, have you really recorded the situation of every window?" "I'm old, don't lie to me." Zhang Yue was about to speak when Lu Xiaoguang suddenly smiled and said, "I want to know if it's really easy." She picked up the phone and made a call. Quickly, a young man wearing security clothing brought a USB drive. Lu Xiaoguang plugged it into the computer and explained, "Since the previous year, Zhongzhou University has installed surveillance cameras on the exterior of every building. Of course, the purpose of installing surveillance cameras is to ensure the safety of students and their belongings. But now it's just right to use it to verify authenticity. The video is playing, which is the surveillance footage of Dormitory Building 14. Lu Xiaoguang adjusted it to 10:43 a.m. and then picked up the schematic diagram provided by Zhang Yue for comparison. At the next moment, he froze. Because Zhang Yue's manual drawing is exactly the same as that in the surveillance video. If it weren't for prior knowledge, people would have thought he was drawing directly from this surveillance video. So, how was this product made? Seeing that his answer was completely correct, Zhang Yue let out a long breath and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead with his sleeve. It's so close. He was able to answer this question, and his eye ability had nothing to do with it. It was entirely based on his own strength. Although Zhang Yue only arrived at the interview point at 10:47, everyone was unaware that he had actually arrived at 6:00 in the morning. The reason why Zhang Yue came so early is not because he is too excited to sleep. But he had read a lot about interview strategies before. The above introduces many bizarre interview questions that the examiners may come up with after their minds have opened up. For example, how many green trees are there on the road you pass through from entering the gate? So, from 6:00 to 10:30, besides hastily having breakfast, Zhang Yue kept walking back and forth between the gate of Zhongzhou University and the comprehensive building. Then he began to imitate and set questions for himself. So much so that not only did he have a clear understanding of the number of trees on both sides of the road, but he also observed various other scenery countless times, and in the end, he didn't even let go of the model of the roadside garbage bin. As for dormitory building 14, I don't know how many times I have seen it. Zhang Yue even knew that the first person to dry the quilt in this building this morning was the second window from right to left on the third floor. The time is 6:42. Especially the girl who is drying the quilt, she is very beautiful. Okay. Zhang Yue admitted that dormitory building 14 is a girls' dormitory building. So his gaze always couldn't help but take two more glances in this direction. Pop 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 pop. Someone applauded hard, it was Zhou Shueding. He gave Zhang Yue a thumbs up and said, "Young man, you're amazing. When I was the same age as you, I was far behind you." Zhang Yuelian hurriedly said, "This teacher is polite, I'm just lucky." Zhou Shueding shook his head and said, "Luck is also a form of strength. Moreover, being able to answer these two questions fluently and ensuring absolute accuracy is not just a matter of luck." After speaking, he suddenly looked at Lu Xiaoguang and said, "Old Lu, why don't you take a break first? How about I ask the third question?" Lu Xiaoguang was taken aback, not expecting Zhou Shueding to say so, but still nodded. Zhou Shueding said, "Zhang, have you been following the market trend of star anise recently?" Zhang Yue said, "I know some things. My parents have a grain shop in the county town, and during the off-season, they also take a few carts of seasoning to neighboring provinces. Well, it seems that I don't need to spend too much time explaining. You should also know the purpose of the Zhongzhou Grain Supervision Commission. If you were to become the head of the Grain Supervision Commission now, what would you do about the freezing point of star anise prices?" As soon as these words were spoken, Lu Xiaoguang beside him couldn't believe the look in Zhou Shueding's eyes. He thought that his two questions earlier were already tough enough. The result is incomparable to Zhou Shueding. Indeed, his two questions are of great difficulty. To answer correctly, besides being meticulous and observant, there is also a great deal of chance. But there is also chance, as long as luck is good enough, there is also a possibility of getting the answer right. But there is no solution to the price issue of star anise, right? At least in Lu Xiaoguang's eyes, it is inexplicable. Zhou Shueding looked at Zhang Yue, his expression instantly tense. He would ask this question, because he had just seen the other person's magic twice in a row and wanted to hear the young man's opinion. Zhou Shueding came to Zhongzhou with a mission this time. Before leaving, the leader specifically stated that if they cannot handle the problem with the octagonal angle well, they do not need to go back. Although Zhongzhou was his hometown, Zhou Shueding never considered staying here. Because only the capital city can provide him with a stage to showcase his skills. But soon Zhou Shueding was disappointed. Since hearing his question, Zhang Yue has been lost in thought, as if he has fallen into some kind of difficulty. Is there really no other way? However, Zhou Shueding was not clear that Zhang Yu's ability to travel beyond the heavens was not hindered by his problems. But rather excitement, unprecedented excitement. After hearing Zhou Shueding's question, he instinctively glanced at the other person. Then, a package of octagonal samples was found in the pocket of the other party's shirt. The octagonal sample is not uncommon, but what is remarkable is that through his eyes, Zhang Yue discovered that the price of this seasoning began to soar sharply 5 days later. From the current 9.5 yuan per gene, it has increased to 85.1 yuan per gene, nearly 9 times more. What is this concept? You should know that Engels once said, "Once there is an appropriate profit, capital will become bold." With 50% profit, it takes risks; with 100% profit, it dares to trample on all human laws; with a profit of 300%, it dares to commit any crime, even risking hanging. Now the profit of something has reached 900%. Zhang Yue instantly realized the correct usage of his eye power. Young man. Young man. Ah. Are you okay? Zhang Yue looked at Zhou Shueding with some embarrassment and said, "It's okay, I was thinking about a problem just now." So you. It's simple, I only have one suggestion about the price of star anise. Wait. Wait. What does that mean? Zhang Yue suddenly changed his previous honesty and revealed his first meaningful smile after entering the office. Guess what? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Stay until September 8th next year. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Stay until September 8th next year. Coming out of the comprehensive building, Zhang Yu's mood was somewhat complicated. Can I stand out from the crowd of interviewees and successfully join the Zhongzhou Grain Supervision Commission? Soon, he shook his head. He answered the first 2 questions perfectly, both by his abilities and his own abilities. As for the third question, Zhang Yu's answer is still very standard. Although I don't know why the price of star anise has increased, I really just need to wait to solve the problem of unsold seasoning. If I think so, those interviewers wouldn't think that way. They are likely to think they are being mysterious. The most crucial thing is that the interview results will be announced in 5 days. And the price increase of star anise happened to be on the 5th day. So even if the first 2 questions are all full marks, as long as the third question is tough, it still gets cold. It seems that in my lifetime, I really have no connection with the establishment of a public institution. But soon Zhang Yue became excited again. Although his official luck is not good, his financial luck seems to be coming. That's right, Zhang Yue found a shortcut to getting rich. Selling star anise. With the knowledge that there is nearly 9 times the profit, you can easily make a big profit by manipulating it. Just the next moment, Zhang Yue discovered something very embarrassing for himself. He doesn't have money. After graduating from university, Zhang Yue devoted all his energy to taking the civil service exam. As for the economic situation, as long as you don't starve and don't have to sleep on the streets, everything else is not a problem. So, the jobs he was looking for before were all those idle and low-paying jobs. And every month before the written exam starts, in order not to be disturbed by mundane matters, Zhang Yue will resign and prepare for the exam. I will not consider looking for a new job until my grades are released and it is confirmed that I have not passed. For example, now he is in a state of dropout. This resulted in Zhang Yue having only 2018 yuan left on his bank card. For 2018 yuan, even if you buy it all for octagonal, you can still earn 16,000 yuan. If it were in the past, he could laugh until his feet twitched when he heard that 16,000 had been paid in. Because in the coming year, I don't have to put in a lot of effort to work and can completely focus my time on preparing for exams. That way, the probability of success is higher. But no matter how you look at this 2018 yuan now, you feel it's too little. After all, if you have 10,000, you can become 90,000 in 5 days. If you have 100,000, you can become 900,000 in 5 days. If I have 1 million, forget it, this is not realistic. If there really is 1 million, still do a ghost business. Directly return to the county seat of your hometown, buy a suite with 400,000 yuan, and then buy a car with 100,000 yuan. How good would it be to lie flat with 500,000 yuan left for financial management? After thinking for a long time, Zhang Yue picked up his phone and dialed his sister Zhang Xiuqiong, who also worked in Zhongzhou. As a good citizen who doesn't deceive, steal, or rob, why is it that you get money the fastest? Of course I borrowed it. He is planning to borrow some from his old sister. What's up? A swift and decisive female voice came from the other end of the phone. Sister, where are you? Zhang Yue suddenly frowned, realizing that the environment on the other end of the phone was a bit noisy. Zhang Xiuqiong said, we're having dinner with our clients. If you have anything to say, please speak up. Eating. Where? I'll go over now. Zhang Yue's voice was resolute. What do you want to do? I'll tell you, be honest with me. This time we're dealing with a big client, just tell me where you are. Hello. 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 Oh my, I have a phone call coming in. I'll talk about it tomorrow if there's anything else. Hang up. Listening to the busy beeps on the phone, Zhang Yue felt a headache. Unlike her own dedication to taking the civil service exam, her sister Zhang Xiuqiong is solely focused on making money. For example, she is now a drug salesperson. Sales inevitably require various social activities. If it's a man, it's nothing, but she's just a woman. For this reason, Zhang Yue is not less troubled. For example, she was recently accused of being unconscious. If it weren't for Zhang Yue's timely arrival, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Zhang Yue continued to dial, but to his surprise, he was hung up again as soon as he tried to connect. If he tried again, it would show that the phone was turned off. Shaking his head, Zhang Yue thought for a moment and chose another number to dial over. This time it was a male voice. Xiaoye, are you looking for me? Zhang Yue made his voice look very anxious and said, Brother Song, it's not good. I called my sister, she seems to have been intoxicated again. What? Are you sure? Through the microphone, Zhang Yue could hear the sound of Song Anliang suddenly standing up from the chair. Of course I'm sure. If you don't believe me, you can call her to ask. And I also vaguely heard a man next to her say he wants to take a shower or something. First Song Anliang's voice became even more tense. Where are you now? I'll drive to pick you up. Hang up the phone. Zhang Yue stood still waiting. Plan successful. Song Anliang is a pursuer of Zhang Xiuqiong and a native of Zhongzhou. My family has good conditions, with a car and a house, and I am a down-to-earth person, especially fascinated by Zhang Xiuqiong. Although not as handsome as oneself, just being 1.83 meters tall is enough to beat 90% of competitors. But for some unknown reason, Zhang Xiuqiong doesn't seem to be interested in him. 10 minutes later, a black Audi stopped in front of Zhang Yue. The car window rolled open, revealing Song Anliang's familiar face. But at this moment, the other party's expression was all restless and uneasy. Xiaoye, what's going on here? I called your sister. She turned off the phone. Zhang Yue reluctantly spread out his hand and said, You ask me, who will I ask? You know, I'm here for an interview today. I thought I would call her and tell her that she was drunk. Where is she now? Do you think I will know? Song Anliang had no choice but to take out his phone, make a few calls, and finally step on the gas pedal as the Audi roared away. Looking at the rapidly receding buildings on both sides of the road, Zhang Yue smiled proudly. In pursuit of Zhang Xiuqiong, Song Anliang has put in a lot of effort on her colleagues. So things that one cannot handle on their own are simply not too easy for the other party. Quickly, the two stopped at the entrance of Qingji restaurant. At this moment, Song Anliang's expression had returned to normal and he said, "How was your interview today?" Obviously, during this time in the car, through Zhang Yue's expression, he understood that this cargo was likely exaggerating. Upon hearing Song Anliang's question, Zhang Yue's tone was instantly filled with fighting spirit. "Until September 8 next year, I will kill 100 flowers when they bloom." "Stop, I understand. I believe you will definitely succeed next year." Song Anliang quickly interrupted the other person's words, feeling a bit helpless in his heart. He always thought Zhang Xiuqiong was very special, but compared to her brother, she was completely insignificant. Song Anliang never imagined that someone could persist to this extent for a job in a public institution. "Your sister is in a private room on the second floor. Let's sneak over and investigate first. You also know her personality, so it's best not to let her know, otherwise it will be very troublesome." I was about to open the car door when I suddenly froze. Because at this moment, two people are walking out of the gate of Qingji restaurant. One man and one woman. The man is a middle-aged bald man, the woman has skin like jade, and a delicate appearance. Who is it if it's not Zhang Xiuqiong? At this moment, Zhang Xiuqiong's drunk eyes were hazy, and she couldn't even walk steadily. The middle-aged bald man supported her, his face full of ill intentions, and his hands were placed in inappropriate places. A wave of hot blood instantly rushed to the forehead, and Song Anliang was about to rush out to save the beauty as a hero, but was pulled by Zhang Yue. Song Anliang widened his eyes and said, "What are you doing?" Zhang Yue remained very calm and said, "Don't worry. If we just beat up this guy, we're likely to be sent to the station. Being locked up is still a small matter, and my sister may not necessarily appreciate it." Song Anliang was taken aback and said, "What do you think we should do?" Zhang Yue suddenly chuckled inwardly and said, "Of course, it's using stillness to break. As the saying goes, if you are a thief, you will take the stolen goods, if you are a traitor, you will be in bed. Let's quietly follow behind. If nothing happens, it's okay. If he dares to have crooked thoughts, let's just hit him to death, making him scared when he sees my sister in the future. My sister also needs to thank us for our brave and righteous actions." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Even if it turns into dust, I can recognize you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Even if it turns into dust, I can recognize you. Song Anliang looked at Zhang Yue as if he had met him for the first time. In his impression, this prospective brother-in-law spends most of his time reviewing various exam materials. Although it may not be dull, it is also difficult to associate it with shrewdness and cunning. But now Zhang Yue is right. If he rushes forward now, he is likely to be bitten back by the other party. After all, although the two of them had ambiguous postures, it was normal for the man to assist the woman after she got drunk. Song Anliang nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll listen to you. Do whatever you say." The middle-aged bald man helped Zhang Xiuqiong onto a Land Rover and quickly drove away. Zhang Yue and Song Anliang were busy following behind. Soon their expressions darkened again. Because of that Land Rover, it actually stopped at the entrance of a hotel called Vanilla Love. Watching the middle-aged bald man supporting Zhang Xiuqiong unsteadily towards the hotel, Zhang Yue clenched his fists tightly. He just stopped Song Anliang from going out. Besides the reasons he mentioned, there is one more thing. I hope that the middle-aged bald man can honestly take Zhang Xiuqiong home. After all, only 1,000 days of being a thief, there is no 1,000-day defense against thieves. He couldn't have been staring at Zhang Xiuqiong all the time. Just like today, if it weren't for my sudden whim to borrow money from my sister, the consequences would be unimaginable. The two of them walked into the Vanilla Love Hotel, and the receptionist immediately smiled and asked, "Sir, what's up?" Song Anliang was stunned and didn't know how to speak when he heard Zhang Yue say, "Beauty, open a standard room." Song Anliang was stunned. It's not because of the content of Zhang Yue's words, but because this guy's gloomy face has changed at this moment, with a smile on his face. The receptionist may have been infected by his expression. She looked at Zhang Yue, then at Song Onliang, and asked in a mischievous tone, "Two handsome guys, do you want one?" Zhang Yue reluctantly shrugged and said, "Of course, we can only have one room. We are sent here by the company to work as laborers. It's just a small travel expense. If it exceeds the limit, you have to pay for it yourself. Okay, give me your ID card." "Alright, 402, here's the room card." Zhang Yue took it and suddenly changed his tone with a lewd expression. "Actually, opening 2 rooms is not a problem, but sleeping alone is too lonely. How about you introduce 2 beautiful women? Just be as beautiful as you." The receptionist instinctively took a step back and looked alert. "Sir, I'm sorry, we are a regular hotel and do not provide that kind of service." However, Zhang Yu's smile remained. You can't treat us differently just because we are outsiders. Mr. Li, it's the middle-aged man who just came in. Isn't the one he hugged exactly what you helped find? Don't deny it, Mr. Li lives in 401, we are very familiar with each other. The receptionist suddenly smiled, but with anger. "Can you stop talking nonsense like me? Mr. Li, I'm still very familiar with it. Is it okay for someone with a high surname? Besides, your room is 402, so you must think it's 401. Let me tell you, his room has been booked long ago, 212. Is it 2 floors away from 401? Handsome guy, you can't sleep with a girl just by shouting. You have to rely on your abilities." Zhang Yue laughed awkwardly and said, "Oh, that's it. I'm just joking. Besides, do you think my face looks like a bad person?" The receptionist nodded decisively and said, "Very similar." Zhang Yue, "Okay, you say it looks like it's like, get me a bottle of Sprite, it's icy, In the elevator, Song Onliang looked at Zhang Yue with a strange expression. Zhang Yue asked strangely, "What are you looking at me for?" "You. Amazing." Song Onliang was just thinking about how to ask the front desk about Zhang Xiuqiong's room, and even prepared to call the police. I didn't expect Zhang Yue to easily obtain the answer in such an outrageous way. Waving his hand, Zhang Yue said, "Basic operations. Let's go in quickly. I'm afraid my sister will suffer if it's late." Song Onliang also knew that the situation was urgent and immediately nodded. Just as the two stood in front of the tightly closed 212 door, Song Onliang froze again. "How should I get in? Are you impersonating a police officer to conduct rounds?" Unexpectedly, Zhang Yue took out the card given by the receptionist and swiped at the electronic door lock, causing the door to open in response. Song Onliang was stunned and said, "This seems to be the door card for 402, right? How can we open the door for 212? Zhang Yue shook the white card in his hand and said, "This is the universal front desk door card. I just secretly changed it." Song Onliang instantly remembered that Zhang Yue had specifically asked the receptionist to bring him ice and snow blue just now. When the other person turned around, he extended his arm towards the front desk, which should have been the time he changed. Song Onliang has been wondering why Zhang Yu's first act upon entering was to open a house and then take the initiative to buy drinks that are much more expensive than those in the supermarket. Everything about emotions is within his plan. But how does this guy know that the front desk has a universal door card that can open all hotel doors? As if guessing what Song Onliang was thinking, Zhang Yue explained, "I worked as a hotel front desk for a period of time before and I am quite familiar with these things." Shoo, but he has pushed open the door of 212. At this moment, the interior of 212 was pitch black, with only faint lights shining in the bathroom. Vaguely, Zhang Yue saw a petite figure curled up in the bed blanket. Without any accidents, it should be Zhang Xiuqiong. The sound of water splashing in the bathroom, and one could vaguely hear the excited bass singing. Zhang Yue and Song Onliang exchanged a glance. Song Onliang nodded and walked to the corner of the room next to the bed, understanding the situation. 10 minutes later, the bathroom door opened. Then a cheap and lewd male voice rushed towards the bed with a chuckle, "Qiang, I'm here." Unexpectedly, just a few steps away, the bright light suddenly lit up. Then Zhang Yue saw a patch of white and plump flesh swaying around. Who was it? Not a middle-aged bald man. The middle-aged bald man never expected such a change to happen. He looked at Zhang Yue, who was turning on the light, and said, "Who are you?" Ouch! But Song Anliang suddenly stepped out from behind and kicked him directly to the ground. Zhang Yue walked over and stepped on his back, slamming his blue plastic slippers onto his head with force. "Do you dare to ask who I am? I also want to ask who you are. What are you bringing my sister here for?" "Ah." The middle-aged bald man was taken aback. "Are you Qiong's younger brother?" Pop 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 pop. Zhang Yue slammed a few more times and knocked off half of the opponent's already small hair. "Return Qiang. Qiang is something you can call." "Oh, don't hit, I was wrong, I." Sting. Zhang Yue wouldn't listen to his plea for mercy. He took out the prepared transparent tape and, together with Song Anliang, tied the person up in a few strokes. In the middle, it's inevitable to make a few punches and kicks. Looking at the middle-aged bald man whose head had already kissed the soles of his shoes until it turned red, Zhang Yue said. "Tell me, what's your name? Where do you live at home? What unit does it belong to?" The middle-aged bald man couldn't help but tremble as he looked at Zhang Yue's almost murderous gaze. My name is Gao Yi." Zhang Yue was taken aback for a moment, and his face instantly became even uglier. Gao Yi. It turned out to be the high school principal. The middle-aged bald man, also known as Gao Yi, was a bit confused and said, "What principal? I'm not a principal." Zhang Yue became even angrier in an instant and said, "Do you think I can't recognize you because I read too little? I'll tell you, even if it turns into dust, I can recognize you." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Originally, none of the lamps were fuel efficient. You are listening at Novel Full Audio. Chapter 6. Originally, none of the lamps were fuel efficient. Next to him, Song Anliang quickly coughed and said, "Xiaoya, maybe you have really mistaken someone." Gao Yi quickly explained, "Yes, I am from the hospital's procurement department, specifically responsible for ordering drugs and equipment. I am not really a principal." Zhang Yue snorted, "I don't care who you are. Dare to take my sister's advice and not let you know why the flowers are so red. You don't even know that Lord Ma has 3 eyes." Speaking, he looked around and finally picked up the disposable toothbrush provided by the hotel. First, stick the other person's mouth with adhesive tape, then align the brush handle with Gao Yi's lower part and forcefully poke it. Gao Yi was in a moment of great urgency. He hasn't practiced iron crotch skill again. If he really gets stabbed, he'll have to give up if he doesn't die. My body quickly struggled with all its might, while my mouth made a loud whimpering sound. That scene is a bit like killing a New Year pig. After tinkering for a while, Gao Yi was exhausted and lay motionless on the ground like a dead fish. Especially with 2 legs, they tremble like a sieve. Zhang Yue threw away his toothbrush, tore off the tape from the other person's mouth, and finally shook his phone. "Old man, don't talk about guys deceiving you behind your back. I have recorded everything that has happened since you entered the hotel. I will post it online in a moment, and let everyone see your hospital's impressive procurement." As soon as he said this, Gao Yi, who was originally lying on the ground pretending to be dead, jumped up in an instant and said, "No, never. If I really spread it, I'll be completely done." He knows more about the power of the internet than anyone, and is also more afraid than anyone. The hospital procurement is a poor job, and once his work over the years is exposed, he can only spend the rest of his life with a sewing machine. Zhang Yue chuckled and said, "Really? But what does this have to do with me?" Gao Yi hurriedly said, "Little brother, this matter is indeed my fault. I shouldn't covet Zhang Xiuqiong's beauty. But I can compensate for the mental damages, just ask your adult to release me in large quantities. Zhang Yue. Really? Seeing his tone loosen slightly, Gao Yi seemed to see hope. Absolutely true. I have over 60,000 yuan in WeChat, and I can compensate you in full. Zhang Yue looked at Song Anliang, who waved his hand and gestured for him to take care of it. Zhang Yue then said to Gao Yi, let's first say that the compensation was proposed by you, not by me. I don't recognize you reporting to the police afterwards. No, how dare I let the police know about this? Zhang Yue loosened the tape on the opponent's hand. 5 minutes later. Did you receive it? Looking at the transfer of 63,128 yuan on his phone, Zhang Yue also deleted all videos and photos, including cloud space, in front of the other party. As the other party stumbled out of the hotel and drove downstairs, Song Anliang couldn't help but ask, is this how we let him go? Zhang Yue shrugged and said, what else can we do? Is it really difficult to expose the photos? Exposing photos can certainly ruin the other party's reputation, but as a party involved, Zhang Xiuqiong will definitely be at the forefront of the controversy. This is the standard damage of 1,000 enemies and 800 self-damage. No, you misunderstood my meaning. I mean, you shouldn't delete all the videos, at least leave 1 or 2 for future use. Do you think the other person is stupid? If they don't delete it completely, they will leave. Zhang Yue suddenly changed his tone and sneered, besides, didn't you also take a photo? Hurry up and pass me a copy. Song Anliang was stunned and said, how do you know? Nonsense, I heard the sound of you pressing the shutter. While receiving the photo package sent by Song Anliang, Zhang Yue walked towards the bedside and said, this is not the place to talk. Brother Song, could you please pack your things? I'll carry my sister on my back and let's leave quickly. Reaching out and lifting the blanket, I was about to pull the person inside when I suddenly realized something was wrong. Hey, who are you? There was a strange woman lying on the bed with the same clothes as Zhang Xiuqiong. Fang Jing blinked his big eyes and looked at Zhang Yue with a strange expression on his face. Upon hearing Zhang Yue ask herself, the woman remained calm and took out her phone to dial out, opening the hands-free function. The phone was connected, and Zhang Xiuqiong's anxious voice came. Zhou Mei, what is the situation? How do I get to Manager Gao's car? Zhou Mei said, you can come and see for yourself. After speaking, hang up the phone directly. The door was quickly pushed open, revealing Zhang Xiuqiong's panting figure. Then she and Zhang Yue met each other in astonishment. 20 minutes later. Zhang Yue looked at Zhang Xiuqiong with a silly expression and said, what are you saying? Did you get drunk before? Just pretend. The purpose is to lead Gao Yi to the hotel and take advantage of the other person's bathing time to have Zhou Mei take your place. Wait for him to finish his task before you appear and talk to him about the drug purchase contract. He finally understood why when he and Song Anliang came in, the lights in the room were off, and Zhou Mei was tightly covered in the blanket. Emotions are afraid that Gao Yi will discover a new person. Zhang Xiuqiong snorted, why, can't we? She is very angry now and didn't expect her seamless plan to be completely disrupted by her younger brother. You should know that's a large order worth over 30 million yuan. As long as it is done, there will be an 8% commission. Now it's good, the 2 million yuan I received went straight to the water. Zhang Yue hurriedly said, no, it's easy for you to mess up like this. In his view, Zhang Xiuqiong's plan was completely taken for granted. What Gao Yi coveted was her beauty, and now it has been replaced by a Zhou Mei who is far inferior in both figure and appearance, completely from heaven to earth. If Zhang Yue guessed correctly, this person surnamed Zhou should have been hired by Zhang Xiuqiong from the shampoo room. For Gao Yi, there shouldn't be too many women like this. So it's difficult to get a drug purchase order based on this. After listening to Zhang Yu's words, Zhang Xiuqiong turned around and walked to the window to remove a black object. At the moment of seeing the object, Zhang Yue froze. This is actually a set of shooting equipment. Zhang Xiuqiong snorted, if he signs the contract with me honestly, it's fine. If I really dare to pat my butt and refuse to admit it, I will send the content inside to their unit leaders Zhang Yue. He thought he was already very smart by taking 2 photos and threatening him. Compared to Zhang Xiuqiong, it is completely not worth looking at. Pretending to be drunk, opening a hotel room, grafting flowers, recording evidence after this series of operations, it's simply amazing. Wait. Zhang Yue suddenly realized something was wrong. If you really do this, it's equivalent to completely offending Gao Yi to death. Aren't you afraid of him retaliating afterwards? Not only you, but also your pharmaceutical company, will ultimately suffer. Zhang Xiuqiong gave a cold smile and said, even if he wants revenge, he dare not take direct action. At least he will wait for the situation to calm down before making a decision. By then, I have already received all the commissions. With this money, what else will I do for pharmaceutical sales? Living comfortably in any other city. As for the pharmaceutical company, it was their supervisor who asked me to seduce Gao Yi with beauty. No matter how fierce the fight between the two sides is, it's a dog biting a dog. I happen to be watching the excitement from the side. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Give me 80,000 yuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Give me 80,000 yuan. Zhang Xiuqiong finished speaking and waved her hand irritably. The plan cannot keep up with the changes, and even if she has any ulterior motives, she is powerless to turn things around at this stage of development. After saying a few words to Zhou Mei and asking her to leave early, Zhang Xiuqiong once again warned Zhang Yue. I've told you so many times that you don't have to worry about my affairs. Don't be fooling around again in the future. Have you heard me? Zhang Yue wanted to say something more, but when he saw the other party's angry and murderous gaze, he could only nod. By the way, why did you call me before? Zhang Yue then remembered the purpose of looking for Zhang Xiuqiong. Oh, can you lend me some money? Borrowing money. No living expenses again. I said, Xiaoya, you're already quite old, can you rely on some genealogy? That's right, the position of a civil servant is good, but the key is that you have to be able to pass it. How many years has it been? With your intelligence, if you find a decent job, you won't even have money for meals. After speaking, he took out his phone and said, here's 2,000 for you. Once you earn the money, pay me back immediately. Don't think about defaulting on the debt. Zhang Yue shook his head and said, no, you misunderstood. I have living expenses. I borrowed money this time to do some business. Zhang Xiuqiong was taken aback and said, doing business? What kind of business? Do you understand business? Anyway, don't worry, I have a plan in mind. How much do you want to borrow? The more, the better. Specifically. 100,000. 100,000 yuan. Are you crazy? Do you know how long it will take for your sister to save 100,000 yuan? That's okay with 80,000. 50,000, it can't be any less. Sister, don't leave. Hello. Seeing Zhang Xiuqiong leave without looking back, Zhang Yue felt somewhat helpless. It's not that he doesn't want to be honest, but if he really tells Zhang Xiuqiong that he wants to hoard star anise to earn the price difference. Don't mention borrowing money, the other party will definitely take you to the hospital to see a brain specialist. After all, even the aunties who sweep the streets on the road know about the sharp drop in star anise. If it weren't for this thing not being able to be eaten as a meal, with Zhang Xiuqiong's shrewdness and stinginess, she would have bought a large pile and slowly eaten it in the house. Zhang Yue still remembers that last year when scallions were cheap, half of the room in his elder sister's living room was lush green. Returning to the car with Song Anliang, Zhang Yue said, Brother Song, I really trouble you today. Song Anliang shook his head and said, what's bothering you? Just make sure your sister is okay. Zhang Yue felt a bit guilty. Because from Zhang Xiuqiong's appearance to her departure, she never said a word to Song Anliang and treated her like air. If it were for himself, he would have been angry long ago, but Song Anliang remained calm and indifferent, as if he didn't care about it at all. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Yue took out his phone and said, "Just now, Gao Yi lost 603,000 yuan. Plus my sister, we have a chance to see each other. I'll transfer 20 million yuan to you." Song Anliang hurriedly said, "No, I came here today purely to help. How can I ask for money? Are you afraid this money will cause trouble?" "Don't worry," he dare not speak recklessly. "No, I really don't want it. You know my situation, I'm short of everything, but I don't lack money." Speaking of this, Song Anliang suddenly felt a little embarrassed and said, "I have always admired your sister. If there's a chance, just say a few more good words about me in her ear." Zhang Yue saw that he persisted, so he stopped mentioning the matter of money. "After all, for myself now, the more money, the better. Then I'll treat you to dinner. Don't refuse, I'll help you fill up the car later." Song Anliang did not refuse this time. An hour later, the two of them came out of the restaurant. Song Anliang suddenly said, "By the way, you said before that doing business requires money. How much is still missing? I can borrow you." Zhang Yu's heart twitched, but soon he shook his head and said, "Forget it, I'm just fooling around, and I'm not sure I'll succeed yet." If someone lent him money, Zhang Yue would definitely not refuse. But Zhang Xiuqiong doesn't seem to be very fond of Song Anliang. You can ask him for a little help, but you still need to be cautious when borrowing money. Although my abilities show that one can make a big profit, one is not afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of the unexpected. If we don't pay back then, it will be a big trouble. Song Anliang didn't insist either. "Well, feel free to let me know when you need the money. And it's not just money, I also have some connections in Zhongzhou, maybe I can be helpful." Song Anliang just casually mentioned it, but Zhang Yu's heart moved. "Brother Song, do you know where there is a warehouse for rent? Try to have a larger area, I would like to use it for 1 or 2 weeks. Of course, it's not in vain. I'll pay the rent according to the market price." Song Anliang said, "Warehouse? You didn't say it earlier. Let's go, I'll take you to a place." Zhang Yue got into Song Anliang's car with confusion. Half an hour later. The northern suburbs of Zhongzhou City. Song Anliang smiled and said, "How is this place?" Zhang Yu's mouth widened in shock and it took him a long time to give a thumbs up. "Good place. In front of me is a large vacant factory area, densely connected, some of which have already been rented out, while others are still vacant. In addition, this place is located between the Lianhua Expressway and the North 4th Ring Road, which is convenient for transportation and affordable, making it definitely the first choice." Song Anliang said, "As long as you are satisfied." Zhang Yue circled around and finally picked a medium-sized warehouse. He calculated that even if it's 10 yuan per kilogram, there shouldn't be a problem with storing 100,000 yuan worth of octagonal coins here. "Song, who is the boss? Let me talk to him." Song Anliang waved his hand and said, "What are you talking about? You can use it directly. To be honest, my father bought this piece of land 5 years ago and plans to wait for it to appreciate in value. I saw that I was also idle, so I spent some money building a warehouse to earn some extra income." "What? This belongs to your family?" Zhang Yue looked at this piece of land in surprise, roughly estimating at least 2,000 acres. Even if the land in the suburbs is cheap and doesn't cost billions, it's impossible to take it down. This Song Anliang is clearly a battle trench in the soil trench. I don't know what the old lady thinks, but she disdains it. As long as you serve dim sum, you will not bother to pit the middle-aged bald head. Despite Song Anliang's repeated persuasion, Zhang Yue still insisted on paying the deposit. It was already evening when he returned to his residence and was thinking about the specific acquisition operation when suddenly the phone rang. "It's Zhang Xiuqiong." Zhang Yue was taken aback and was about to answer when he hung up the phone. Next message came. I transferred 20,000 yuan to you, don't underestimate it. It's good for you to want to do business, but don't take too big a step at the beginning, take everything step by step. Looking at the transfer of 20,000 yuan, Zhang Yue felt 1,000 emotions in his heart. Although Zhang Xiuqiong spoke harshly during the day, now it seems that she still cares very much about herself. The next day, Zhang Yue first went to the second-hand car market to rent a van, and then entered the seasoning market. At first glance, a row of stores are all selling seasonings. Zhang Yue casually found a shop, and the one guarding it was a middle-aged lady. Do you sell octagonal here? There are bagged and loose weighed ones, which one do you want? How much does it cost per kilogram for loose weighing? 9.35 yuan. You can go to other places to ask. The things here are definitely the cheapest in the market. 9.35 yuan. Isn't that cheaper than the price displayed by one's own eyes? Zhang Yue immediately said, okay, give me 80,000 yuan. The older sister's eyes widened instantly and she said, how much do you say? 80,000 yuan. Is that okay? End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Acquiring Octagon is not easy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Acquiring Octagon is not easy. Big sister quickly shook her head and said, Big brother, let's not joke anymore. Not to mention the 80,000 yuan, there are none of the 800 yuan. I only sell a few tens of grams when cooking meat in this small shop. And the price of star anise has been falling all along. If it weren't for distribution, I wouldn't have bought it. Zhang Yue didn't expect such a situation to occur and was momentarily dumbfounded. What should I do? I want so much. The elder sister pointed to the bag at the door and said, that's all I have. Zhang Yue weighed it on the scale and found that it only weighed 4 pounds, so it didn't cost a total of 40 yuan. Seeing him in a difficult situation, the elder sister took out her phone and said, Brother, you are also a real person. This is Xiaosuan's phone number. He specializes in wholesale of star anise, maybe he can help you. Really? Thank you so much. Zhang Yue said the truth. In order to prevent vicious competition among peers, it is generally not advisable to provide the contact information of wholesalers in the market storefronts. You don't need to thank me. Xiaosun knows the whole market, so it's useless to keep it a secret. Zhang Yue immediately dialed over and the phone was quickly connected. Hello, hello. Is that Manager Sunday? I was introduced by Red Sister from Guihong Seasoning Store and I am looking for you to wholesale star anise. About 7 or 8,000 pounds, do you think it's convenient for you? Unexpectedly, the other person said decisively, I'm sorry, boss. I'm afraid I can't help you either. Ah. You don't have any stock in your hands either. It's not that I'm out of stock, but that the entire Zhongzhou doesn't have so much inventory. You also know this year's market situation. For our distributors, the more goods we have on hand, the more we will lose. And in about 10 days, the new star anise will mature, and the price will at least drop below 8 yuan, is that so? Zhang Yue frowned. Can't we specially transfer a batch of goods over? I can give you the money first. There's no problem with adjusting the goods, the key is whether you can wait. The situation nationwide is actually similar to that of Zhongzhou, and the quantity you need is quite large. At the fastest it will take a week. Forget it then, I'll think of a way. Hanging up the phone, Zhang Yue felt a bit helpless. He never expected this to be the current situation. As for waiting for the other party to transfer the goods, should we just forget about it? If there is no problem with the eye's ability, the price of star anise will skyrocket in 5 days. If the increase is small, the other party may still deliver the goods on time. But that's 9 times the profit. If the other party uses any excuse of incomplete goods and pays a penalty according to the contract, they will only be able to stare at each other. Standing in the same place, pondering for a moment, Zhang Yue suddenly picked up the half bag of well-weighed star anise and walked away. Sister, sell these to me, I'll transfer the money to you. The elder sister became anxious in an instant and said, no, that's what I used for stocking. How can I do business if someone comes to buy cooking sauce after you have taken it all? Hello, you. But Zhang Yue couldn't help but throw it directly into his own van and lock it. Not to mention that I can't buy Octagonal from Manager Sunday. Even if you can buy it, if you drive a van all the way over and burn dozens of yuan of fuel, you can't run an empty car, can you? Then he went to other stores to sweep the goods and quickly sold out the entire market of star anise. So the person who was planning to improve their family's life during the weekend, after buying various meats, excitedly went to the seasoning market to buy seasoning, only to find that there was a lack of flavor. Helpless, everyone could only wait for the arrival of the new star anise and replace it with a mixture bag full of crushed materials. Zhang Yue was unaware that his actions would bring such a small trouble to everyone. Now he is also troubled. Although it has been confirmed that it is not possible to purchase a large quantity at once, Zhang Yue was not worried at first. Because he only has 80,000 yuan in hand, which means even if he throws all the money away, he can only earn over 8,000 pounds and 80 cents. As long as you work hard and run a few more trips, you can definitely prepare all the goods. But Zhang Yue still overlooked one point, which is the volume of Octagonal. The dried star anise is very light in weight, and the common urea bag can hold only about 10 pounds when filled. 20 bags per van, 300 pounds is enough. Therefore, Zhang Yue needs to make 27 trips to pull enough goods of 8,000 pounds. Due to the limited stock in the market, in order to fill a large cart, it is necessary to scan the goods from at least 2 seasoning markets. Sweeping the goods is easy to say, but he has to buy them one by one. Some shop owners see him buying too much, even if Zhang Yue is willing to pay more, they don't sell. So Zhang Yue ran all morning before finally being able to fill a car. According to pulling 3 cars a day, in 5 days, you can buy 15 cars. No, the price of star anise will increase on the 5th day, but in fact, he only has 4 days. Therefore, in order to maximize profits, one can only find a large batch of goods at once and transport them all back to the warehouse by large trucks. Where in Zhongzhou can there be over 8,000 kilograms of star anise? Hey! Zhang Yue sighed helplessly. If only I could give myself a few more days. I can only say, this is all fate. Just as Zhang Yue had given up hope and was rushing around various seasoning markets with the intention of accepting as much as possible, he accidentally came across a message from a shop owner. The Chinese herbal medicine market in Zhongzhou may be in stock. Zhang Yue's eyes lit up instantly. Besides being used to season meals, star anise is also a traditional Chinese medicine. In fact, it's not just star anise. The spices used in daily meat cooking were originally traditional Chinese medicine. However, later people discovered that these traditional Chinese medicines had a fragrant taste, and cooking them with meat and other ingredients could greatly enhance their freshness, which gradually led to the concept of seasoning. Unlike seasoning, star anise, as a traditional Chinese medicine, is sold together with other Chinese herbs. So the fluctuation in the price of a single medicine does not have a significant impact on the Chinese herbal medicine market. In order to ensure the normal supply of all medicinal materials in the prescription, those pharmacies will definitely stock up on star anise normally or even in large quantities. Thinking of this, Zhang Yue immediately drove towards the Chinese herbal medicine market. The Chinese herbal medicine market in Zhongzhou is located near the CBD in the Eastern District. As expected by Zhang Yue, after asking several traditional Chinese medicine shops, there is indeed a large inventory of star anise here. But when he explained his purpose, he was instantly dumbfounded. Because the replies from the owners of these traditional Chinese medicine shops are exactly the same. Not for sale. If you want to buy it, we have various traditional Chinese medicine formulas rich in star anise in our store. According to the prescription ratio, you can choose as many as you want. Unwilling to do so, Zhang Yue asked all the way and soon arrived at a pharmacy called Gao's Traditional Chinese Medicine Wholesale. Gaoshi Traditional Chinese Medicine Wholesale is the largest store in the Chinese herbal medicine market, with sufficient stock, a wide variety of categories, and the best reputation. Zhang Yue regained his energy. "Hello, boss." "Hello, hello. Please take a seat and have some tea." The person welcoming Zhang Yue is a middle-aged man. However, upon seeing the other person's appearance, Zhang Yue was taken aback because he noticed that the other person had a slightly familiar face. But Zhang Yue was very certain that he had not met the other person. He thanked the other person repeatedly, and after a few pleasantries, he directly spoke up, "Boss Gao, to be honest, I want to buy a large number of star anise. Do you have any stock here?" The boss's name is Gaoan. After listening to Zhang Yue's words, he did not refuse directly like other shop owners. He smiled and said, "Sir, since you have come to me, you should be aware that the market for star anise is not good. Fresh star anise is about to be harvested, and it is highly likely to fall below 8 yuan in at most half a month. Why not wait a little longer?" For this question, Zhang Yue had an answer long ago. "Mainly because I needed it urgently, otherwise I wouldn't have come all the way." "Well, that's not for sale." "You." Zhang Yue's face turned black in an instant, as the other party made it clear that he was teasing him. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Yue said, "Can I ask why?" "After all, as you have said, the price of star anise will continue to decline in the near future. As long as you restock in a timely manner, you can make a big profit." Gao En looked confident and said, "Of course I know this, but after all, it's just speculation. What if the country suddenly introduces a certain policy to curb the downward trend? The most crucial thing is that when I bought the star anise in my warehouse, the average price was about 18 yuan. But selling it in traditional Chinese medicine prescriptions can cost over 50 yuan per kilogram. If you want to buy in large quantities, it's not impossible. It costs 40 yuan per kilogram, and you can buy as much as you want." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Enemies often have narrow paths. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Enemies often have narrow paths. Zhang Yue looked at Gaoan with a strange gaze. Previously, he came to Gao's wholesale of traditional Chinese medicine, but the other party did not refuse him directly like other bosses, and even invited him to drink tea. He thought the other person was a good person. It is only now discovered that the entire traditional Chinese medicine market belongs to this product, which is the worst. Still weigh 40 pounds. When octagonal is most expensive, it's less than 30 yuan. If you really want to pay this price yourself, it's better to run from one seasoning market to another. Standing up, Zhang Yue said, "I understand. Since Mr. Gao doesn't want to sell, let's have the opportunity to cooperate again in the future. Time is money, it's better to go somewhere else instead of blindly riding with the other person here." It's already the evening of the second day, and Zhang Yue only has 2 days left. When he left, Gao Enyi changed his previous calm demeanor and his expression was all gloomy. As soon as the other party entered the traditional Chinese medicine market, Gao En knew it, although he didn't understand why Zhang Yue had to accept so much star anise. But based on the merchant's intuition, he believed there must be a problem inside. So there was the scene just now. Gao En originally intended to try to trick Zhang Yue's words, but to his surprise, the other party didn't give him a chance at all. But soon he let go of the matter, turned around, went upstairs, and pushed the door open. "Brother, here's the medicine. Please apply it quickly. There is a person lying inside the room at this moment." If Zhang Yue saw it, he would definitely be surprised. This person is actually Gao Yi, who was beaten up by him a few days ago. Unexpectedly, the wholesale of traditional Chinese medicine by Gao Shi turned out to be the industry of Gao Yi brothers. Gao Yi's head was wrapped in bandages, his legs crossed and pulled, and his expression was very painful. Why did it take so long? Just now someone wanted to accept octagonal, and their behavior was quite strange, so I asked a few more questions. At this time, I'm collecting star anise. Are you sick? No matter what, how did I ask you to check on Zhang Yue? Oh, the information has just been sent over, let me take a look. Zhang Yue, a native of Weixian County, Hunan Province, whose parents run a grain shop. Gao Yi interrupted, just talk about her younger brother, the others are not important. His younger brother's name is Zhang Yue. Wait. What's wrong? Gaoan looked at the photo on his phone with a surprised expression on his face and said, I just ran to our store to collect Octagonal, it seems like Zhang Yue. Gao Yi instantly sat up from the bed and grabbed his phone. Then the facial muscles couldn't help but jump wildly. He looked at Gaoan and said, are you sure you're not mistaken? Gaoan nodded and said, he just left. He should be at the neighboring Lao Lu store now. Gao Yi immediately looked down through the roadside window. Coincidentally, Zhang Yue Gang came out of the opposite store with a gloomy expression on his face. Sure enough, it's him. He clenched his fist tightly, but soon calmed down. Did you just say that Zhang Yue is currently acquiring a large number of star anise? Gaoan said, yes, he needs 8,000 pounds in one bite. Why did he buy so much star anise? I didn't ask in detail, but I feel something is wrong. How much octagonal stock do we still have? 1,500 pounds. Although star anise is a traditional Chinese medicine, its uses are not extensive, so there is not much stock available. Just these 1,500 pounds, the price has dropped sharply this year, resulting in a significant backlog of inventory. In previous years, it only weighed around 700.800 pounds at most. This is also the reason why Gaoan rejected Zhang Yue. He can certainly sell these star anise to Zhang Yue and wait for the new star anise to arrive before purchasing to earn the price difference. Unfortunately, the inventory is too low. Even if it falls below 8 yuan in half a month, he will only earn 2 yuan per kilogram. 1,500 pounds for 3,000 yuan, that's not enough effort. After thinking for a moment, Gao Yi suddenly said, you immediately call Zhang Yue back and say that you can sell him star anise. But 1 kilogram costs 15 yuan, and he needs to buy at least 10,000 kilograms. Gaoan was taken aback and said, 15 pounds per kilogram. Will he agree? Besides, we don't have so many octagons, do we? Gao Yi said lightly, we only know if we agree or not to give it a try. As for star anise, we don't really have that much in our hands, but the entire Chinese medicine market combined has it. Since we have 1,500 kilograms of inventory in our warehouse, not to mention other traditional Chinese medicine stores, we still have 700 to 800 kilograms. You are familiar with those shop owners and can buy 500 pounds each. They will definitely not refuse to pay 12 yuan per kilogram. This only requires 17 or 18 families to make up for it. Gaoan's eyes lit up instantly. If my brother's words are really feasible, he can make 30,000 by changing hands. For Gao's wholesale of traditional Chinese medicine, 30,000 yuan is definitely considered a big deal. And he just needs to go around each store and sell face. He is truly someone who can work as a procurement specialist in a hospital, and his mind is simply lacking. If it were me, I could only watch as 30,000 yuan slipped through my fingers. Gao Yi squinted his eyes slightly, and the depths of his pupils were filled with malice. He asked Gaoan to collect star anise, in addition to making a profit. More importantly, I want to trick Zhang Yue. That day, he was caught in bed by Zhang Yue because of his nervousness, which caused him to be in chaos. But when I came to my senses afterwards, the more I thought about it, the more wrong it became. Especially Zhang Yue. When the other party was drinking, they finished their 2-liang cup in one gulp. Entering the Vanilla Love Hotel, it was like constantly getting drunk for a while, and then suddenly waking up. Combined with the appearance of Zhang Yue later on, the situation is now as clear as ever. This is a fairy dance created by two people working together. Gao Yi could only acknowledge this by pinching his nose. After all, he dared not be exposed. Just because you can admit defeat doesn't mean it's over. For example, today. The unclear purpose of Zhang Yue's acquisition of star anise does not mean he cannot guess. Just this morning, the beautiful country CA magazine published a paper titled Spectral Analysis of the Inhibitory Effect of Octagonal Aminophenol on the Spread of Human Malignant Tumors. The paper states that the inhibitory effect of octagonal aminophenol on malignant tumors is 14 times that of paclitaxel, a specific anti-cancer drug. Octagonal aminophenol is an important extract of star anise. As a medical worker, Gao Yi saw it immediately. It is estimated that Zhang Yue's siblings also received this news and believed that star anise would increase in price, so they began to make crazy purchases. Will star anise really increase in price? Gao Yi, who has been dealing with drugs for decades, can confidently say, yes. But the increase will never be very high. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Zhang Yue's Little Brothers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Zhang Yue's little brothers once again rejected by the shop owner. Zhang Yue's face was filled with helplessness. He is a bit conflicted now, whether to continue negotiating with the herbal medicine store or go directly to the seasoning market to sweep the goods. Although going to sweep the goods may be tiring, at least there will be gains. If the negotiations continue to fail, it will be completely empty-handed. After all, time waits for no one. Just as he was lost in thought, a voice behind him said, "Brother Zhang, wait a moment." Looking back in confusion, it turned out to be the boss of Gao's wholesale of traditional Chinese medicine. Gao En smiled and said, "Brother Zhang, I just thought about it and realized that the business of star anise is not impossible. If you're not busy, can we find a place to talk? Don't worry, it will take you up to 5 minutes at most." The two of them returned to the reception room on the first floor of Gao's traditional Chinese medicine wholesale. After listening to Gao En's words, Zhang Yue couldn't help but be taken aback and said, "What are you saying? Octagonal 15 yuan per kilogram. And you need to buy at least 10,000 pounds. Gao En nodded and said, "I know this price is a bit high. But to be honest, in order to gather this batch of goods, it is necessary to concentrate all the inventory in the entire traditional Chinese medicine market." That's right, the market price of star anise is currently less than 10 yuan. But even if you wear your lip down, no one can sell it at this price. You have visited so many stores, and you should already be very clear in your heart. I can come forward and take a large quantity of goods from them at a price of 12 yuan per kilogram. As for myself, I can't be busy in vain, can I? Anyway, you should consider it. If it's okay, let's cooperate. If it's not okay, let's forget it. Zhang Yue is already feeling a bit tempted. Gao En is right. Given the current situation, it is impossible for him to acquire a large amount of star anise at market price. So if we can really pay a premium of 5 yuan per kilogram, replenishing the goods at once is the most cost-effective. After all, compared to the highest price displayed by the eyes, these 5 yuan are nothing at all. But thinking so in my heart, I can't make the other person see it on the surface. Zhang Yue pretended to look embarrassed and said, "Boss Gao, I believe in your sincerity. If it's just 10,000 pounds, I don't have enough money on hand. How about 14 yuan? I will pay you a deposit of 20,000 yuan in advance, you kid." Okay. But there are two conditions. Firstly, the acquisition price must be kept confidential. Tell other shop owners that 1 kilogram costs 12 yuan. You were just kind enough to help them with their business and didn't make any profit from it. Smart. Secondly, I am only responsible for communication. You can find a way to transport the goods yourself. And if there are any quality issues in the future, I will not be responsible, sure. Okay, come and pick up the goods tomorrow morning. Remember to bring enough money. Happy cooperation. Happy cooperation. Coming out of the traditional Chinese medicine market, Zhang Yue exuded a sense of relaxation throughout his body. He didn't expect things to go so smoothly. Driving over to the roadside, Zhang Yue thought for a moment and dialed a phone number. A voice from Yang Wentao came from the receiver. "Brother Yu, you finally think of your brother. You don't know, during your absence, I miss you every day," Zhang Yue said helplessly. "On the other hand, I'll ask you, are you still running big goods in Zhongzhou? Isn't that nonsense? What else can I do without running big?" "But you can't, you college student. Are you free tomorrow? I want to ship some goods." "I am free. I have been very free recently. Besides, even if we don't have time, in our relationship, we still have to have time." "Okay, where are you now? Send me a location and I'll find you." Yang Wentao and Zhang Yue are young and their relationship has always been good. The other party just dropped out of school early and kept working around. "In the first 2 years, I saved up enough money to buy a car and made a living by helping people transport goods." When Zhang Yue knew he needed to transport the goods himself, he thought of Yang Wentao. Yang Wentao is at a construction site in the eastern suburbs of Zhongzhou. When Zhang Yue arrived, he was welcoming him at a large intersection. There are 2 people following behind the other party. "Brother Yu, you have finally arrived. A new barbecue shop has opened near here. Go, strip the skewers. By the way, these are Du Ren and Jiao Zifei." They met while working on this construction site and pulling goods. Zhang Yue immediately greeted the 2 of them. In the barbecue restaurant, 2 bottles of beer were served and the atmosphere quickly became lively. Zhang Yue took the opportunity to talk about his plan to luck with star anise. Yang Wentao smiled and said, "What should I do? It's just 5 tons of goods. Let's go early tomorrow and we can handle it in half a day." Du Ren suddenly said, "I have been to the traditional Chinese medicine market a few times. The goods there are all concentrated in the warehouse to the west, which is convenient, but there is a difficult road to travel. However, it is possible to operate a mechanical forklift on the construction site, which can save a lot of effort. Forklifts belong to construction companies. Just give the foreman 2 packs of cigarettes." Yang Wentao was taken aback and said, "But I can't drive a forklift." Du Ren. "It's okay, I'll teach you. That thing can be learned in 5 minutes, it's very simple." Zhang Yu's heart moved and he said to Du Ren and Jiao Zifei, "How about you 2 help out too? Not for free, 1 person for 200, manage lunch." Du Ren quickly shook his hand and said, "What money do friends need? It's only right to help. How about that? Move it, the money has already been transferred. You go, you are. Okay, you can rest assured that tomorrow's matter will be handled beautifully." Zhang Yue smiled slightly. To Du Ren and Jiao Zifei, there are only 200 yuan in half a day, which is already very good. You know, they work hard all day on the construction site, and that's all they earn. Because he was afraid of delaying things, Zhang Yue made do with the night in Yang Wentao's car. The next day, just as it was dawn, the 4 of them set off. When we arrived at the traditional Chinese medicine market, it happened to open. End of this chapter.